outcome will be.
Can I throw this one, please, Chair, just quickly? And it's well known in this nation that we've got a pilot shortage. So by not having the level playing field that we've got now through the medical certificates, would that be an impost on attracting young people into the aviation industry or not?
Look, when you complicate anything, it becomes a hurdle. And today what youth are faced with is they come into the aviation system being told, come and get an RAAus RPC, start here, it's cheap. They get that RPC, but they still have to jump into the CASA system. But now what we've got is a CASA system which is becoming incredibly expensive. And the reason the CASA system's becoming expensive is we've been wholesale gutting general aviation to pour it into recreational.
Yeah, and that's because... Oh, sorry, Chair. Go on. And I was going to lead on to, because we've got the table supplied to us, the difference between the cost of training and
so
getting a
licence. So if you just tidy up on that, we'll go to Senator Brockman.
Okay, and just share with us very quickly, if you can, Mr Morgan and anyone else, you've provided, I think you provided us with that, haven't you? Who provided us that?
No, it was on the website.
Oh, it's on the website. Our diligent secretariat has found, and I'll just quickly say that if you want to... Oz Flyer. Yep. And it talks about Ozflyer. Go through them because we can get it cheaper. You know, we can go to the United States and there's some recognition. You come back, do a little bit more testing. But just for example there, Chair, for a private pilot licence in the US, this is in US dollars, you can get it for $9,500 in 1.5 to 2 months. The Australian equivalent in US dollars is $20,000 and 3 to 6 months. So there is this what's it called? Oz thing, whatever. Oz Flyer. Yep. So it's encouraged. We'll go to the US, get trained, come back, and then we'll work our way around the system so we don't have to do the training here in Australia.
So, Senator, just very quickly, my response to that is, for nearly 30 years, the Australian aviation industry has been calling on the Civil Aviation Safety Authority to adopt the US regulatory framework. It's almost like a broken record. For years, decades, 30 years, think about this, 30 years, there has been a consistent message, adopt the US regulatory framework. Yet for 30 years, we continue to be told by our regulator, you can't do that. They've put up every obstacle, every reason, every excuse known to mankind as to why they can't do it. So the failure of the general aviation industry sits squarely on their shoulders because they had the opportunity 30 years ago to actually get with it and to get that US system going, but have refused to do so. And now we're in a situation where Australia is wholly uncompetitive on the global stage. Yeah. And given the fact that the US currency advantage to the Australian, you would think we would have a thriving flight training industry right now and a thriving private pilot economy, but we do not.
No, I want to share these, sorry Mr Morgan, I share these figures with the Senate when it goes through, this is from the website, private pilot licence, instrument rating, commercial pilot, multi-engine and flight instructor. Should you do it in the US, it's going to take you 6 to 8 months and it's going to cost you $33,500 US dollars. Should you do it in Australia, it'll take 15 to 24 months and in US dollars, it's $85,000, $50,000 more.
And Senator,
what's that site, Senator? Just so
it's the website. It's called Ozflyer. I'll get it for you. Sorry, Mr. Morgan. Just
no, Senator, it's fine.
Aussie Flyer. I've lost it.
Do we have anything to? Is it if you people?
Aussie Flyer website.
Have you?
OZIFLY.
So
I shouldn't say.
Has anyone got a body of? See, old detective in me. Has anyone got a body of material that underpins that? I mean,
No, I don't.
I take everything off the internet with
I'm more than
grain
happy
of
to
salt.
take on notice and we'll compile. I've got a very similar chance to this. I'm happy to compile an international cross comparison to show you where it all stacks
with it referenced particularly so that we can test any aspect of it.
I'm happy to do so,
Senator.
I'll wind up, Chair. I'll just say this is Uber with wings.
Uber with wings.
Did you like that?
Senator, I think what's very important to understand about the flight training costs in the United States is one of the biggest fundamental differences, well actually two huge fundamental differences, but one of the largest contributing there is the fact that 75% roughly of all flight training in the United States is conducted by independent flight instructors. Now we've taken this proposal to CASA and this proposal fell on deaf ears. We used to have independent flight instructors within our system up to about 89. That provision was removed, and if you plot it all out, you'll see that the cost of flight training increases as you force people into structured fixed-based training environments because they carry greater overheads. Now CASA will tell you, You can do independent flight instruction under the current system, and you are right, you can technically do that, but you cannot do it to the level of cost efficiency that you can do it under the US system. And in fact, if I can just go back to the last meeting I had with CASA face-to-face on this issue, we had a representative from the United States who is one of our directors, Mr. Mike Smith, who's a former Deputy Director of Aviation Safety for CASA. I think he knows something about the job and he knows something about our industry, who runs a flight training and maintenance organisation in the United States. And Mike Smith made it abundantly clear to the representatives that in the United States, an individual can start a flight training organisation, and they can also start a maintenance organisation, and they can also start a charter organisation with the bare minimum of documentation and a bare minimum of cost. And what we're talking about, senators, is spending maybe $5,000 to get a multiple set of approval set up. Yet in Australia, I am yet to meet an operator who has been able to achieve the successful startup of a flight training, maintenance or charter operation without spending bucket loads of cash. Okay. So there is a problem. The two systems are very different, and the system we've got is the donkey, and the system they've got in the United States is the Ferrari, and I know which one I would prefer to be driving.
And just quickly, Chair, can I just quote, please? Sorry. Can I just quote on their website? This is Oz Flyer.
Yep.
Only in WIFA, which is where they are, the price includes accommodation and a vehicle. This is a significant financial advantage when dealing with long periods of time. You will not find an option like this in Australia, and it will save you a fortune.
Okay, righto.
Just
Senator
really quickly,
Rock.
and
Sorry.
as you've taken that on notice, and you can tell me that CASA has this information, but can you also provide us with comparative safety data? Obviously, the US general aviation sector is a lot bigger. So I don't know if somebody's done a comparison that says number of pilot hours versus
Senator,
accidents.
we can obtain that data. We have a huge amount of support through the International AOPA, and of course International AOPA is the largest global general aviation advocate, so we'd be happy to do so.
So can we have a cost comparison but also a safety comparison?
I can do my best with that, Senator. We might have to liaise a little.
Okay, well, see what you can do. I don't expect you to go to the ends of the earth on that one. And just really quickly, and happy for you to take this on notice if it requires a long answer, but just going back to Senator Sterle's question a couple of questions ago, we've got Qantas going to setting up flight training academies. Has the general aviation sector decline led to an exacerbation of that issue of not enough pilots? That the pathway of a young pilot through the GA sector to commercial pilot, has that fallen away, which is why now the larger airlines are having to look much more at the flight training academies?
Senator, a very simple answer is yes, but I just want to extend on a little bit. The general aviation flight training community in Australia has had to undertake a number of fundamental changes over the last couple of years, transitioning out of the old approval system into the new 141, 142. And these new approval regimes, which were introduced by CASA, have added enormous costs to the operation of those schools. And as a consequence of that, you've actually got a number of schools that have decided just to pack up and exit. What's actually happening in Australia is a significant number of our schools are being sold to Chinese interests. There was a fairly large school at Bankstown Airport, which in fact belonged to the president of AOPA, Aminta Hennessy. She's just sold out her flight training operation, and it's gone to a consortium that are now, I think there's 5 Chinese airlines involved in that consortium and their training. The growth we're seeing now in flight training is all to do with Chinese market training. It is not to do with Australian local training. And the airlines are now having to step into this space because the small mum and dad operations, which were for many decades very successful at training some of our most accomplished pilots, have been driven out of business. Now, CASA will tell you that they haven't. CASA will tell you, no. They were market forces, economic market forces that led to the demise of those businesses. But if you get those business persons in a room and you sit with them, they are very clear and unambiguous as to why they are no longer in the general aviation industry. And again, I believe, just in maybe some closing remarks here, there is a real problem in our general aviation industry, a massive problem. And that problem is the way in which our safety regulator is regulating our business community and our users. And there needs to be a deep and serious inquiry into the way in which this regulator has behaved. I all too often in my role receive numerous letters and correspondence across my desk of examples of behaviour that frankly leave you aghast. A regulator that demonstrates that it will go to extreme lengths to litigate. I've got examples of private pilots who have performed nothing more than a misdemeanour, a traffic infringement effectively, but have virtually lost their houses trying to defend the right to maintain their private pilot licence. Now, something is catastrophically wrong. How many millions of dollars are we spending pursuing people in a punitive fashion? Now, I understand it's not the direct
Mr.
direct
Morgan,
makeup.
I'm going to have to, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to wind it up there because CASA deserves their time here to respond to some of this stuff.
Thank you, Senator.
But if you've got evidence of what you've just spoken about, you need to particularise it carefully. You need to underpin it with the physical
We're happy
evidence
to provide
and reference it and get it to the committee. I mean,
Happy to provide that.
your view is valuable, but evidence supporting a statement is even more valuable, and oftentimes I find in our world that, and I'm not suggesting this is the case with you, that it just evaporates sometimes. People's views have formed a view, and it's not a fair view. So thank you, gentlemen, for your. I'm sorry, Mr. Sesko. We are. CASA are entitled to respond. We've taken our time. I'm sorry. So thank you all. Wish you all the best.